To one of the talking points of the season, the Bulldogs, last year's wooden spooners. Their draw looks pretty good, actually, to be honest. They've got the Cowboys Broncos to kick off. They play the Broncos twice. They play the Knights twice. Play the Cowboys twice. Warriors twice. And they play West along the way.
They do have 10 games against last year's top 6.
And they do have 10 games against last year's top 6. So you have to earn it. Look, they're the spruik team this year, given the signings they've had. Potentially, do you want to run through a top 17 company? Or happy for me?
You go through and I'll comment
you can
on top
comment as you go.
17.
But something
Wrong.
a Dufty, Addo Carr, Shoop, Allen, Naden, Burton, Flanagan, TPJ, Marshall King, but it seems like the hooker roll's up for grabs. Vaughan, Tapine, Jackson, Thompson at lock, then Avarillo, Hetherington, Biondi, Odo, and who else did I have on the bench? And Siu Munga someone along those lines. I could be very wrong there. You've mentioned Paul Alamoti off air. Have first crack here, Gump. Look, a lot of spruik around there. Hot forward pack on paper. A lot of speed on paper. What does it actually mean?
Trent Barrett's under pressure. Trent Barrett is
Can Trent Barrett actually coach?
Well, Trent Barrett's under huge pressure.
Yeah.
Bulldogs, again, I'll harp on it. Spine's a problem. I don't know. They know who's going to be 7. I don't know. They know who's going to play 9. We'll have to wait and see what team they put out the first week. I would be playing the kid Alamotti in the centres, probably with Shoop. He was probably their best player last year in a bad season. Runs hard, tackles hard. Young kid, put him in, and I'd probably throw Naden on the wing, coming out of yardage. He, runs hard, gets his 10 metres. Like Corey Allen, too slow. Braden Burton, too slow. They've got those blokes as backup. I'd start Avarillo at half. I just can't come to Kyle Flanagan.
It would look like that was his plan at the end of last year, so it wouldn't surprise me.
I can't come to Kyle Flanagan. I would personally play Hetherington in the back row. Last year,
there seemed to be talk of that.
If you looked at the speed gun last year, Jack Hetherington was the 5th fastest clock speed in the NRL last year, and he's playing in the front row.
That's it.
So he was the 5th fastest clocked player in the competition.
So would you...
I would probably play him in the back row. I think, unfortunately, and I love Josh Jackson, I'd probably play Josh Jackson off the bench. Yeah. I don't know, attacking-wise, he's going to offer him enough. I'd probably play Luke Thompson at lock and have him as that ball player. I think he's got that ability. Play him like a Murray, Radley kind of player.
I did
Isaiah
mention that
Yeo,
last week, actually.
In terms of that, have Luke Thompson. You could play...
You got Paul Vaughan and TPJ to start prop, so you don't need...
To start in the front row. So you've got those blokes. You've got Hetherington, and you could play Fatala Mariner on the edge as well, who's coming back from injury, who they've got big raps on. I'd probably play Avarillo. Burton still runs a team, and have Avarillo until they can sign somebody else. They'll go with Marshall King. I'd probably go with the young kid they signed from South, Cook. In there. He's had his go. My theory is if a bloke's had a go for a couple of years and hasn't really set the world on fire, give someone else a crack, they can go back to him if they have to. But they've at least now, as a Bulldog supporter, they've got speed. They have to tackle. They didn't tackle last year, so they'll have to defend, but they've got speed. They've got some blokes that have got some X factor in your Dufty, your Adokar. At least now, what I said about the Raiders didn't have, at least the Bulldogs have that, that they have a bloke that can get the ball 60 out and run. I'd love to say they'd make the 8, but on historical data, teams don't improve 9 games. Yeah. They won 3 games. You'll need to win 12 to make the 8. If they improve 9 games, then Trent Barrett's a genius, and Gus is a genius, and it could happen. It's going to happen one day.
You know, the flip side is there's so much pressure now that they think they have a hot squad all of a sudden from the fans and the media and everything else. If they lose 4 of the first 6, Barrett's right in the...
Well, I think that they need to this year at least get to 8 or 9 wins. Then the Cavalry's coming, then they'll have a Kickow and Reed Marnie the year after.
Yep.
which then shores up your 9.
Yeah.
And you've
And
got
then it's
another
a
player on
2-year
your
deal
edge.
too. Yeah.
So, I think that Barrett's right. If they get 9th or 10th or 11th and they're sort of around about and competitive, but if you're right, if they lose to the Cowboys and Broncos the first 2 weeks, they're in trouble.
Cool. I want to ask
trouble.
you, so first of all, like you said, whether you're coaching the under 6s at Glenmore Park or the Bulldogs or one of the rep teams you're involved with, surely you go to bed at the start of the year knowing who's going to play your spine. How can you be this close to a season?
I think he
without
does. I think he knows. They've got to know.
Yeah.
They're
100%.
training the same as the Broncos, where we say we're not sure, but I'm
But they
sure
have to have an
internally they know who's going to play in round 1.
Yeah. Something I suggested, I think it was either one of the last shows last year or the first shows this year, was trying to offload Jackson at a price to a club like the Tigers, which would be mutually beneficial for both. Would that have worked for you think?
I think it's another Jared Croker thing. You can't get rid of Josh Jackson.
Yeah.
And you need a Josh Jackson in your team. But in attack, he's not offering you anything. And now, if you're playing someone in the back row, they've got to make a line break.
Yeah.
The good teams have back rowers that are big and make line breaks. Josh Jackson, unfortunately,
That's right. Well, someone like a
is
Tigers
not-
or a Newcastle, you could palm off and say, we'll go 3/4 freight and both teams win because they need someone like that.
Yes, but I think when you're talking about
They're trying to respect
the
the
club
bloke,
captain
yeah.
and the respect for the club, I think that's probably the thing that holds them back. And he'll be the captain. And look, I love Josh Jackson, and
Yeah.
he's in the best 17 players. But the problem is, where do you fit him? For what impact?
For what's coming.
Do you want him in the last 20 minutes if you're in front by 10 points? Probably to defend. You
Absolutely.
probably want him. But if you're down by 10, do you want Josh Jackson on the field to win you the game? Probably not. So I guess it depends on game situation.
I'll just quickly give my thoughts. I agree with everything you've said. I think they'll improve. I think they'll improve enough to finish 10th, 11th, 12th. I think they'll win. There'll be some games they put 40 on teams because Speed and Dufty will have a field day and all that sort of stuff. But Matt Burton's now a targeted man. He's the targeted man in the squad. We saw what he did at Penrith. Yeah, he got Penrith out of trouble a few times, but he also wasn't a dominant 5'8" by any means when they were missing both halves. And now he's got to run the show. I have concerns. I also have concerns about when you actually go through their squad, there is still a severe lack of depth. When you actually look at, all right, they've got these 5 blokes here. When you peel them away, there's not much underneath, and you lose one of you're going to lose one of those forwards early. You're going to where do you go? I don't have much more to add there because we've spent a bit of time with it. So I think he's nailed the rest of it. I'd like to see Hetherington in the back row. I think Averillo. I've said it for 3 years now. I love Averillo as a player, but I don't actually know what he is, which is concerning if he's going to be a starting number 7. And beyond that, I think Paul Vaughan will pull his head in and have a good year for the season. But I don't have much more I want to necessarily spend time on because we're dragging chain a little bit. Barney, what do you make of the Doggies?
Absolutely. The Dogs actually signed some forwards, which I've been calling out for a while. I think they're going to be a much stronger outfit than they have couple of previous seasons. They've got a large lift in attacking players, so they're going to have the ability to score points, which they had pretty much zero ability to score points last year. My questions, again, as Gump said, I've got questions around their defensive structures. There was times last year where teams were just scoring points for fun, and if that continues, it's not going to be real good for their season. I do expect them to win a lot more games than they did last year, but I can't see it being enough to challenge the top 8. I question the coach. I always have. I'll stay that way until he shows me something different. I expect I think they're just, as I mentioned before, I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be taking wins and losses off each other in that sort of position in the middle there. So I've got them finishing 12th at the end of the season.
I have to agree with Barney, at least in terms of the ladder position. I've got him 12th as well. The one thing I do disagree on is the halves. I do think, and it's not necessarily that he deserves to be there or doesn't, whatever. The only player in that Bulldog side that I have ever seen have some semblance of being a halfback is Cole Flanagan. He's form or not, he's the only player who I have ever seen control a team on the park before. We talk about how Burton's the man who got to control the team. Well, he was supposed to control the team at Penrith when Luai and Cleary were out during Origin, I thought he was not very good at all. Apart from that little 10-minute period towards the end of the game where they nearly beat Cronulla last year, I've not seen personally, maybe Gump's seen more sort of in the lower grades, or you guys have in the lower grades, but I've never seen Matt Burton show me anything that he is a game controller. Amazing 5'8" when he's got someone like a Cleary there with him, but I've just never seen anything from Matt Burton to tell me he can be the game controller of a team. The only player in that whole Bulldogs side that I said I could see is Kyle Flanagan as possibly their halfback, unless they got someone in the lower grades who's absolutely tearing it up and controlling a team around the park. That's the only... And Jake Averillo, I'm not even sure he's a 5'8". I don't know. Like you said, you don't know what he is. I don't know if he's a 5'8", the centre, whatever. I'd tell you what he's not, though. He's not a halfback for me. I understand why you'd have Averillo
he's
there.
He's not a halfback. He's probably a 14.
Yeah, he's a 14. Because he can play 10 minutes hooker.
Trying to put him somewhere.
Yeah, I definitely understand you having him there. I'm not having a go at you for necessarily putting him there, because their options are quite thin, and I understand you're not having Flanagan in the side because he's not been great. But in terms of someone who I've seen who can play half-back specifically, Flanagan's the only one. So that's why I'd have him in the side. But I think it's sort of got to be a slow improvement for the Dogs. So many people are tipping top 8. I've seen a couple of people tip top 4 as well, which I'm not even going to notice those people. But it's just people expecting too much too quickly. When you're rebuilding a side, you've got to actually rebuild.
I will.
Do we all remember last year when the Bulldogs made a bunch of signings, had the new coach coming in, and apparently they were going to make the 8? What happened? They finished last. So I think we got to lower we got to sort of lower those expectations a bit, I think.
Yeah.
And 12.
Someone we'll try and get on this year actually, because I think he's pretty switched on. Is Trent? One of your relations, and he's got a real good feel for the Dogs. A good man, so we'll try and get him on over the course of the year.
My problem with Flanagan is I think the Bulldogs, as Barney said, need to defend better, and Kyle Flanagan thinks tackle's something you take fishing. He's just defensive. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But defensively, the games he played were where the Bulldogs leaked the points, and like the games against Manly he played and whatnot. He was a turnstile, and I think if they want to set that mode of being a tough defensive team, I don't know whether Kyle Flanagan... Look, he just doesn't get his body in front.
Yeah.
Like, he can be little, and that's fine, and plenty of little blokes defend okay.
Averillo is smaller than him, and he tackles a hell of a lot better.
And he gets his body in front. Kyle Flanagan just doesn't, for me, put his body on the line, and I can't cop a player that doesn't do that.
I can see him being at Newcastle by the end of the year, somewhere like that, where they'll just be panicking and they'll just take someone off him. Very, very quickly, because we'll move on, 2 players I want to get a thoughts on. We haven't mentioned Biondi Odo, who did a couple of good things in the last year, and Jackson Tapine, who's I think only just turning 18. I thought he was pretty impressive for what he brought to the table last year. Probably has a bit of growing still to do, but are they both just long-termers here, Barn?
Well, they both played a bit of time at hooker there, so during the season...
Tapine might even be close to starting hooker.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did throw either one of those in at hooker. I think Marshall King will start the season, but Beyond Odo seemed like he was quite quick and nippy in and around the ruck there with a decent passing game. And Tapine, he's definitely going to be a back rower. Probably end up as a 13 by the time he's finished. But again, pretty good footwork for a fairly big fella, quick enough. And I dare say he'd have some good ball skills on him. I haven't really seen it yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he develops that over the next few years. So I think he'd be one of the better ones going forward.
Any Dad?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, definitely.